Good morning, Patti McCracken. This is another 5-minute book bite, which is an initiative of the Martha's Vineyard Times, of Edgartown Books, of MV Arts and Ideas magazine, and Islanders Write, the festival that celebrates all facets of Islanders and their writing. And we're here today to talk with Patti McCracken, who is the authoress of Angel Makers. And it's a fascinating book. We'll get into it in a minute. And it is 5 minutes, so I'm going to start the timer. And when it goes off, we'll have about 30 seconds to wrap up. And thank you very much for being with us today, Patti McCracken.
It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. I'm honored to be here.
Well, I have to ask you, how did this book come about? And let me say to the audience, it is a book about mass murder in Hungary in the 1920s. How did you ever get from Martha's Vineyard to Hungary in 1920s?
Oh, I actually was living in a village in Austria. I used to be a reporter, and I was a freelance reporter based there. And I was just looking for stories to do. And I was ambling down the back roads of the internet, and I found this strange story that I thought, okay, that's not too far from where I was living. I lived on the eastern Austria, so bordered also, the next border from my town was Slovakia. And then just a few minutes from there was Hungary. So it was the triangle there. And my neighbor, Harold, was a photographer. And I said, Harold, actually asked his wife, Petra, can I borrow your husband? And can we go on a little road trip? And Harold's like, let's do it. So this village where these murders took place was about 150 miles from where I was living in Austria. So there was a lot of accessibility there. And I wrote an article about it. And I thought, I'm a journalist, you do kind of this, you appreciate what you're working on, but you move on to the next thing. But this was just, I couldn't put this baby to bed. It kept getting up. I kept talking about this story parties and thinking there's got to be more to it, because when we went to that village, it was a very profound experience for Harold and me, and for our interpreter. Harold still talks about it with his friends, and it was just profound to be there and to see that there's much more going on than the original article I had found and read about was indicating.
What was so profound?
Well, it was profound in the way that you realize that everybody who's living there now is a descendant of a victim or a perpetrator or both. And so they live with it like Germans live with Hitler. I mean, it's just in their lives. And we went over to talk to the librarian, as we were advised to do by the somebody living there when we first got there. And it took the librarian about an hour and a half in our discussion to reveal that she was the great niece of the midwife who was at the center of this murder ring. And so that was profound in itself, because she wasn't hiding this information. It just wasn't this is who she is. It wasn't a big deal to her that, that she was the great niece of this infamous midwife. Just happened to be something she mentioned in passing. And for us, that was fascinating, because it was so revealing that it's so deeply embedded in their lives.
So there was a midwife who began to relieve people of their problems.
More or less, yeah. So she would distill arsenic from flypaper, and she would put it in a little vial that she would then put in her apron pocket, like a little babushka. And she would go around and she would say, why are you bothering with him? I have a solution. And she literally had a solution, an elixir that she would pull from her apron pocket and offer. And she wasn't the only woman doing this in this village, or as I came to know, other villages throughout Europe. But for her, it was a business. For the other women, it was women helping sisters helping sisters get out of very dark, abusive situations.
And our timer has gone off. So we've used up most of our time, but that really is a great intro into a wonderful book again, The Angel Makers by Patti McCracken. And thank you so much, Patti McCracken, for spending 5 minutes with us. We'll be back and talk to you again sometime soon, I'm sure. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.